make you look good.
It's actually in the video. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Falafel Store.
Vegetarian falafel store.
Yeah, vegetarian. As my friend Brett came from Thailand, and he has been living there for 10 years and is pretty familiar with Thai culture and Thai language. As I'm learning Thai right now, he gave me some useful resources and advice. We will put in the description box a link to his channel and also to maybe his website. You can introduce your website.
Yeah, so my site is Learn Thai from a White Guy, and I have a book teaching people to read Thai, and I've been teaching Thai for like 7 years now or so. So that's what I do. And I study a bunch of languages as well, although this guy's really good.
No.
We walk around in Brussels and he speaks Arabic to everyone and Turkish, and it's kind of weird for me because I'm used to living in Asia where I speak a lot of Asian languages, so I'm kind of used to being that guy, but he's way better than me in all these languages, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
He inspires me.
I love Oriental languages like Turkish, Arabic. I really like them, but now I'm just
going east.
Yeah, going
Southeast.
southeast, and I said, hey, why not learn some Thai? Next time I go to Thailand, I will not be like not complete tourist, but I would be able to understand more Thai culture.
Right. Well, you can always go to like find a kebab store. And
Yeah.
there's plenty of Turkish guys in Thailand.
So could you tell me what is the most important thing to master when you first begin to learn Thai?
It's a good question. I would say you really need to learn the alphabet.
Okay.
Because the sounds of Thai are there's just a lot more vowel sounds than a lot of other languages. Like more than English, certainly more than Japanese, and the transliteration. There's so many different transliteration systems for it, and they're all terrible. They don't reflect tones. They don't reflect vowel length. There's just too many problems with it. You could learn the IPA, but it'd be quicker and make more sense to just learn the alphabet.
Yeah, I learned. I used several books like Living Language Thai. I used Asimal Thai, Teach Yourself Thai. By the way, Teach Yourself Thai is very bad.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that series.
Some
of them are okay, but some of them are better than others because they're not all written by the same person, obviously.
Obviously, for common languages like Spanish, it's well done, but for Thai, wow. Audio doesn't match the text in the book, so it's...
And the stuff in there is not stuff that people ever say.
Completely crazy.
Yeah.
And can you give some pieces of advice to get better at learning how to write and read Thai? Is there any step to follow?
I mean, the way I teach it in my book and what I told you and what I tell everyone is just master the rules one step at a time. Like there's 3 groups of letters. If you're into Thai, you probably know this already. But there's 3 groups of letters in Thai, and they all have slightly different rules. So you're better off sticking with the smallest group, and mastering the hell out of the rules. So just practice that group and gradually introduce more vowels onto yourself. You can do it with my book, or you can do it on your own. It doesn't really matter. And then once you're really good with those rules, like you really know them, then you move on to the next group, the high class, which is the second smallest group. And the rules are very similar to this. So it's not a big jump. It's just a matter of learning 9 more letters, slight change in tonals, and then if you have to, spend a week just making sure you really know those 2 really well, backwards and forwards. And once you're confident with those, you move on to the last group, which is the biggest group, it's the hardest group. And once you've mastered that, it's just like learning another language. There's nothing like that's the hardest part of Thai, is just getting over that first hump.
A lot of people get scared when they heard that Thai has 5 tones.
Yeah.
So is it really that scary?
I mean, Thai was the first tonal language that I learned.
Okay.
And I didn't really know anything about it, and so in the beginning I didn't understand the difference. But by learning to read, I knew what tone a word was supposed to be. Even though I couldn't always hear the tone right and I couldn't always say it right,
yeah,
it didn't matter, because what happened was I would focus in on 1 or 2 words that I knew, like words that I heard every day, like really common words, and then I'd listen for when Thai people said them.
Okay.
And then I'd come across other words that had the same tone rules because they fit into the same, the the same spot.
The same pattern.
Yeah, the same pattern, and then eventually, it just kind of allowed all those words to line up for me.
Yeah.
So because you say the falling tone the same way every time.
Okay. So, what's the whole process of learning Thai after learning to read, after learning basic expressions and basic dialects? How do you get from there to get really able to communicate with Thai people in everyday life? Let's talk about everyday life topic.
You have to master that stuff. So what a lot of people do is they study a lot of the basic stuff and then they move on into heavy stuff, and that's not a bad thing. But I think it's much more effective if you really get awesome at the really basic stuff. Just because you can order a drink and everyone and it works doesn't mean you're doing it perfectly. And so every time if you go back and do the same thing, you're never going to improve on that. So what I would do is I would always go back to the same place and order. I would order something different, not because I wanted to eat something different. I would order something different just because I didn't want to be saying the thing that I already knew how to say. So I would change things up. One thing I did to practice was when I got into practicing spelling and stuff, is I started doing my expenses in Thai. And everything I spent money on during the day I would write down. And if I didn't know how to spell it, I would just give my best shot, and then I'd look it up later, and then I'd correct it in there. So the next day, if I buy that thing again, which if I spelled something wrong, I would buy it a couple times.
So
I could go back and check that page again, so it's in my pocket.
So you mean you apply Thai to everyday activities?
Right. And then within like a month, I realized how boring my life was. And then I had to start changing my routines just to learn more words.
Yeah.
Because I was buying the same iced tea every day. It's like, all right, I gotta get another one. I was like, let's go to this mall. Let's start going to the other mall just so I have different things to write.
Yeah.
It made my life more interesting for a little while.
Okay. So it's not so hard to learn Thai. It's a matter of patience.
Okay. Yeah. So we both know the secret. This is not a secret language hack or anything.
There's
no such thing. It takes a long time and it involves a lot of work.
That's a long.
If you want to learn to play the piano, you can't go to a piano lesson for 45 minutes a week and never practice, or only play the same song that you know how to play that you like playing, and do that for 10 years. You'll never be able to play well.
The songs are infinite.
Right. There's an infinite amount of songs, and there's an infinite amount of sentences and words, and you can always say what you already know how to say better. And you can always
improve.
Like one thing that I recommend for my students is after they've gone through the alphabet is I feed them. I have a list of about 100 sentences, exactly 100 sentences that and it's just for free on my site. And I actually have it translated in a bunch of other languages as well.
Russian, Korean, Japanese, and
a few of them are in Burmese, but
in Burmese.
I have a lot of problem with Unicode in Burmese. And
my Mac cannot read it.
It's too much stress, so I gave up on the Burmese.
Okay.
For a while, but so I would have them go through those a few at a time and master the hell out of those sentences. And once go out and say those numerous times, and then change them around, add in new words. Really master a sentence pattern. If you can get 50 to 100 sentence patterns on your belt of things that people say every single day, you can pretend you're fluent. If you're saying them correctly,
your
you're saying them right.
method is based on a repetitive pattern, repetitive
activities. But it's okay to change it up and to make it not boring, because that's
okay.
It's going to be work, and sometimes, and it's not always going to be fun, but
just avoid boredom.
That's the way to getting good at something is not like enjoying yourself the whole time. I used to buy into all some of those people that tell you, just have fun, but it doesn't work. I had fun for years, but I didn't learn anything. So I had to change. You have to put in the time. And why don't you talk about it? Tell them just real quick what you do for your routine. You speak he speaks 7 languages. He got a few for free, but he's learned quite a few on his own.
So my method is quite studying a lot at the beginning, learning. Right now I'm learning Thai. I made an effort to just focus on how to write Thai, but at the same time acquiring vocabulary through basic books like Asimo, Teacher Sub, and all those stuff. But that's really the less interesting part. It's the building blocks. And when you get past this stage and you can communicate with people, everything becomes more natural. And
how long does it take you to go through one of those books? Spend a month?
More.
Okay.
It really depends on the language. Turkish was pretty different, but I have an environment to learn Turkish. I could speak it every day,
Right.
nearly every
You
day.
could go sit at a Turkish tea house
Yeah.
and practice some sentence. This is what I would do if I lived in Thailand. I would
Not
learn
just some
Thai.
sentence,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, but you could sit there and practice something, and you could go up to the counter and be like, and just say it to them, and they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But
Yeah.
that's what I used to do in Thai, though. It's just
Yeah.
now, you know.
And when you pass that, when you hit a plateau, you're kind of motivated and you are like steady. You know that you're going to succeed, and you really have to reach that point. That you don't have to be discouraged after 2 months or 3 months. You just keep learning, and you.
How long? I mean, how long? Since we need to advise people, because a lot of people, you know, we can't give them too vague information.
Yeah.
It's really hard. They want to know how much do I have to put in. Obviously, that varies depending on the language and who you are.
Yeah.
But what he does is, when he decides on languages, he spends 30 minutes a day,
Yeah,
every day,
exactly.
7 days a week. So he sets
Exactly.
aside, and I imagine you have small goals in mind when you're going through this.
Yeah,
Like
I
get
have
through these
small goals.
passages, and it doesn't matter if it takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get through that one passage. He'll go through it, you know, step by step, maybe piece by piece, every day.
Exactly.
And after he's gone through it, maybe he remembers, I don't know, half the words, maybe more.
Half, or and then you review it, and the most important is to use what you learn.
Yeah.
If you use what you learn,
It sticks.
it sticks. If you don't use what you learn, it's kind of passive. You cannot use it.
You might be able to recognize it, like a lot of times for me, and I imagine it's the same for everyone,
Yeah.
is if you study something a lot but you don't actually use it, sometimes it'll come up and you won't catch it.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
exactly.
30 seconds later you will be like, I studied that thing
yeah,
like
I
10 or 20
know.
times, and then by then it's too late.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's you'll still learn it that way, but and you know some things you will have to learn that way because you won't necessarily be able to have 1,000 opportunities to use
it.
everything you come
Yeah.
up. So that's part of the process. But you want to, the more active you are, the faster you're going to learn, the faster you're going to get better.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that makes you remember forever is when I go up. Like after I saw him speak in Turkish, I went and studied Turkish for an hour, and then I was just in Germany, and every
lot
taxi
of
driver is Turkish, so I'm,
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't know how to speak Turkish. I know like 10 words now, but I was saying all of them.
It was pretty funny.
They weren't very impressed, but I was pretty impressed with myself.
Yeah, you could remember
Yeah,
all those words.
but all right, because even though I said it and I felt a little stupid and they didn't care, because I felt a little embarrassed, I'll remember it forever.
The first time we are always like kind of stupid when we try to practice. We don't know how to put the words together. We don't
Right.
know if the grammar is right.
Or
but
intonation or tones or whatever.
But that does not really matter. The experience, you're just accumulating a lot of experience, and when you get to the point, you can speak without thinking. And I think when you can speak about nearly everything, not too technical, like not politics or economy, everyday life, you can be considered as fluent.
I don't know. It's hard. It's one of the. I don't even try to define that word. And people say, "Well, how many languages do you speak?" I'm like, I speak tons of languages, but I'm not very good at any of them.
Yeah, it really depends
That's how I
on the
feel.
goals.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm not fluent in English. I stumble over words. I don't
Yeah.
use English the same way I did when I lived in the States and I.
There
in
is
school.
something. There is always something new to learn about.
There's
any
always tons
language.
of stuff I don't know in English, and there's stuff that I forget because I don't ever use it anymore. And
Yeah.
that's kind of people stress like, oh, you don't know that word? Like, well, that word has never come into my life.
No problem if you don't know how to say revolution in Thai. You're not going to learn use a revolution. Yeah, maybe now, but not that often use that word.
Right.
Like I read newspaper in Arabic. I know the word revolution, thawra. I never spoke about the thawra with Arab people, but I just have to know it just for cultural background.
Right.
That's it. Okay, we'll make another video in Thai this time. Take care. Bye bye.
See you.
Okay.